It was an autumn night, and I had just finished work at the downtown office in Seattle. The sky was already dark. The air was damp, and the streets shimmered under the glow of the streetlight. Having recently graduated from college, I was still adjusting to this vibrant city, filled with endless aspirations for the future. Due to financial pressures, I shared an apartment with a stranger named Mike. Initially, Mike seemed friendly enough, though he was quiet, and we got along reasonably well. My room was already set up, which was a big plus for me. It had a single bed, a wardrobe, and a small desk, all creating a cozy and inviting atmosphere. That night, as I entered the apartment and shrugged off my soaked coat, I noticed Mike wasn't home. There was an inexplicable stillness in the room. While I was accustomed to the quiet, tonight's atmosphere felt unusually oppressive. I went into my room, sat on the edge of the bed, and picked up a novel I had been reading, trying to relax. Suddenly, I heard a faint buzzing sound, like that of a small electronic device. I looked around trying to locate the source but found nothing. Thinking it might be my imagination, I continued reading. But the sound persisted intermittently, leaving me increasingly unsettled. To distract myself, I decided to go to the kitchen to prepare some food. While busy in the kitchen, my mind kept flashing back to that strange noise. After cooking dinner, I returned to my room, turned on my computer, and started browsing the news. Just then, the doorbell rang. I got up to answer it, and it was Mike. He looked tired, greeted me briefly, and went straight to his room. I noticed something off about his demeanor, but I didn't dwell on it. A few days later, I noticed that my life was becoming increasingly bizarre. Whenever Mike wasn't home, I could hear that strange buzzing sound. One night, I even woke up to see the desk lamp flicker briefly before returning to normal. This led me to suspect there might be some hidden device in the room. One weekend night, I decided to conduct a thorough inspection of the room. I started from under the bed and carefully examined every corner. When I checked the desk, I found an inconspicuous small device in the drawer. It looked like a miniature camera. This discovery sent shivers down my spine. I immediately unplugged it and threw it in the trash. I decided to confront Mike, but he vehemently denied knowing anything about the camera. Tension grew between us and our trust in each other evaporated. Over the next few days, I watched Mike's every move cautiously. He often stayed in his room, rarely venturing out, and seemed very secretive. To protect myself, I decided to inform the landlord about the situation. The landlord was shocked and promised to take immediate action to investigate. Meanwhile, I started considering moving out to find a safer place to live. However, the night before I planned to move, things took an unexpected turn. As I packed my belongings in my bedroom, I suddenly heard a low, ominous knocking at the door. I opened it to find Mike standing there, his face pale, and his eyes filled with an inexplicable fear. He handed me an envelope, trembling, containing a note and several photographs. I opened the note and was stunned by its contents. It contained warnings about someone monitoring us, and the photos showed strangers around the apartment building. This made me realize that it wasn't just Mike. Perhaps others were also involved in this conspiracy. We decided to go to the police together and handed over all the evidence. The police promised to investigate and advised us not to return to the apartment for safety reasons. Mike and I checked into a hotel awaiting the results of the investigation. During our stay at the hotel, our relationship softened, and we shared more information. I learned that Mike was also a victim. He had noticed some anomalies in the apartment but lacked the courage to confront them. There was a similar camera in his room, and he was as confused and frightened as I was. A few days later, the police informed us that they had found suspicious individuals around the apartment and arrested a suspect involved in installing the cameras. During interrogation, the suspect confessed that he was hired by a criminal organization to monitor tenants' daily lives using cameras to gather private information for extortion. Upon hearing this news, Mike and I finally breathed a sigh of relief. Although the situation was resolved, this experience shook my trust in life. We decided to find new accommodations and start our lives afresh. After leaving the apartment, I found a secure, small studio and resumed my work and life. Mike also moved to another city, and we lost touch. Nevertheless, that chilling experience remains deeply etched in my memory, reminding me to stay vigilant in this complex world. After my night class, I walked out of the classroom. It was already very late. The temperature in Arizona was mild at night, and the air was filled with the unique dry fragrance of the desert. The campus was silent, with only a few streetlights flickering in the darkness. I headed towards the parking lot, ready to drive home. Since the class ended later than usual, the parking lot was almost empty. I quickened my pace, feeling a bit uneasy. As I reached my car, I suddenly felt a pair of eyes on me. Turning around, I saw a stranger standing in the distance, hidden in the shadows, staring at me with cold eyes. I quickly got into my car, locked the doors, and my heart started racing. After starting the car, I decided to take a detour to see if someone was indeed following me. As I exited the parking lot, I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw that figure following me, not too far behind, enough to make me wary. I chose a small road that I didn't usually take, hoping to lose the foul. The buildings on either side cast long shadows, making the road look particularly eerie. In the rearview mirror, the black car continued to follow, confirming my suspicion that I was being tailed. My mind started racing, thinking of ways to escape the impending danger. After driving for a while, I decided not to head straight home but to go somewhere more crowded. I drove towards the city center, where bright streetlights and bustling crowds offered a sense of safety. As the traffic increased, I maneuvered through the streets, trying to lose the black car with a complex route. Despite constantly changing my path, the car remained on my tail. This filled me with intense fear, my heart pounding like a drum. I tried to stay calm and kept driving until I reached a large shopping center. The parking lot was brightly lit and crowded with people and cars, so I decided to park and observe the followers' movements. After parking, I quickly entered the shopping center, blending into the crowd. I noticed that the man had followed me inside. He stood at the entrance looking around, seemingly searching for me. I held my breath and hid behind a row of shelves, carefully watching his actions. After a few minutes, I saw him walk towards another area, seemingly giving up the search. I breathed a sigh of relief and decided to take this opportunity to leave the shopping center. I quickly made my way through the crowd and exited from the other side. Once outside, I headed straight to the nearby bus stop, planning to take a bus home to avoid further tracking. While waiting at the bus stop, I remained anxious, constantly alert to my surroundings. Finally, the bus arrived, and I quickly boarded, choosing a window seat. Through the window, I saw the man still lingering near the shopping center, apparently unaware that I had left. As the bus slowly pulled away from the stop, I started to feel a bit safer. There weren't many passengers on the bus, but the presence of a few night commuters gave me some reassurance. After a while, I finally reached a stop close to home. I got off the bus and didn't head straight home but walked around a few blocks to make sure I wasn't being followed before slowly making my way home. Walking on familiar streets, I remained highly vigilant, not letting my guard down. Once at my front door, I scanned the surroundings again, ensuring there was no one suspicious before quickly entering and locking the door behind me. I breathed a long sigh of relief and felt a wave of exhaustion wash over me. Lying on the couch, I reflected on the night's events, still feeling shaken. That night, I finished a hectic day at work and began my journey home. The streets of Brooklyn, New York were still bustling, with restaurants and shops brightly lit, people coming and going. I was accustomed to this bustling rhythm of life. Despite the day's exhaustion, the lively scenes always helped me relax a bit. Walking home was a routine, especially on warm nights. The air was fresh that evening as I strolled along the familiar streets, feeling at ease. However, this comfort was soon replaced by a sense of unease. I felt a pair of eyes watching me, the intensity of the gaze so palpable that I couldn't help but turn around to check. At first, I didn't see anything unusual. The street was still crowded, everyone busy with their own affairs, but the feeling of being watched persisted and grew stronger. I quickened my pace, trying to shake off the unease, but it seemed to draw more attention from the observer. Unease gradually turned into fear as I realized someone was following me. I glanced back again and finally saw a figure. He was standing not far away, pretending to look elsewhere, but his gaze occasionally flicked towards me. This pretense was clearly a cover for his true intentions. I quickly turned back, deciding not to look at him again, and continued walking. At that moment, my mind was racing with thoughts. How do I get rid of him? Should I find a safe place to hide? Or should I call the police? My heart was pounding as if it would leap out of my chest at any moment. The streets around me gradually quieted down, and the number of pedestrians dwindled. Certain parts of Brooklyn can feel eerie at night, especially when you know someone is following you. Suddenly, I remembered that a good friend's apartment wasn't far from here, and I decided to take a detour to her place. I quickly turned into a narrow alley, hoping to lose the stalker. The alley was dimly lit and damp, with a musty smell hanging in the air. Halfway through, I heard rapid footsteps behind me, echoing loudly in the empty alley. Fear surged through me, my spine tingled, and I dared not look back. I could only quicken my pace. At the end of the alley was a relatively busy street, and I breathed a sigh of relief as I stepped out. However, the stalker hadn't given up. He stood not far away, pretending to look at his phone, but his eyes were still locked on me. I knew I couldn't go on like this. I had to take action. I took out my phone, pretending to make a call but actually taking photos to document his appearance and location. Then, I walked into a 24-hour convenience store, the bright lights and presence of people inside giving me some comfort. I pretended to browse the shelves while sneaking glances outside. The stalker didn't follow me inside. Instead, he stood outside, feigning nonchalance while waiting. I knew I couldn't stay in the store forever. I had to find a safer place, or call the police directly. Suddenly, I remembered there was a police station nearby. I decided to go there for help. I left the convenience store, heading towards the police station, deliberately choosing streets with surveillance cameras and walking with a determined stride, trying to bolster my courage. All the way I kept an eye on the stalker behind me. He seemed to sense my purposeful movement and grew hesitant. But he didn't give up and kept following at a distance. When I reached the police station, the stalker abruptly stopped, standing across the street, unsure of what to do. I seized the opportunity to quickly enter the station and explain the situation to the receptionist, showing the photos I had just taken. The receptionist immediately called an officer, who reviewed the photos and videos, then decided to send someone out to check. I waited in the police station for a few minutes, gradually calming down. The officer returned to tell me they had found the stalker and brought him in for questioning. When the man was brought into the police station, he kept his head down, avoiding eye contact. The officer assured me they would conduct a thorough investigation to ensure he posed no further threat to me. The officer also advised me to stay with a friend or family member until the situation was fully resolved. That night, I called my friend, who came to pick me up. We went back to her apartment together. Although I was safe, the fear and anxiety lingered. At my friend's place, I replayed the entire event in my mind, grateful for my decision to seek police help. With my friend's comfort, I slowly calmed down, but the feeling of being stalked was hard to shake. In the following days, I stayed at my friend's house, being extra cautious whenever I went out, ensuring I was always in a safe environment. The police also called to inform me that the stalker had been detained and wouldn't pose a threat to me for the time being. This experience made me realize that danger can strike even in familiar surroundings. Staying alert and seeking help promptly is the best way to protect oneself. Although the experience left me shaken, it also made me cherish every day and appreciate the people who helped me in times of need. Ultimately, I returned to my apartment, but with heightened security measures. I installed more safety features, carried self-defense tools, and remained vigilant every day. This experience taught me how to stay calm in critical moments and protect myself, emphasizing the importance of safety. I hope everyone who reads this story learns from it and takes steps to protect themselves, avoiding similar dangers.